Welcome into this edition of the Bobcast. I'm Dan Wallace with you. A full slate of coaches, 6 on tap for you today, and we start with head baseball coach Guy Robertson. Coach, it wasn't supposed to be, but it turns into a little bit of a short week for your team. You get a couple games rained out. You get one on Sunday, and we're recording on Tuesday this time, so one on Monday as well. And the first one on Sunday, they've had a bit of a rough start to start the season, only 4-3 at this point now, but you take down the number one team in the country in SUNY Cortland. And the first place I want to start with that game is what Brady Adam has meant to your team so far. He's been incredible through the first couple weeks of the season. He gives you 7 strong once again, only allowing 1 earned run, 2 runs in total. He does walk 4 batters, but he strikes out 8. One of the biggest issues for your team a season ago was in the pitching department. You had Greg Schneider, who was fantastic, but you can only run him out there once every couple of days. How big is it for you to now have that solidified number 2 that you can count on every time he's out there?
Well, no question is what we were missing last year. I mean, every year that we've had success, we've always had some complementary pieces on the pitching staff over the last 3 to 4 seasons. It can't be put on one person's shoulders, and last year it pretty much was. Not to mention that we didn't do a very good job of getting Greg a lot of run support in this past season either, so that didn't help. But yeah, I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that it was really fun to watch these guys go out and compete against the teams they were pitching against, but also kind of compete against each other. And you could see it when the one was on the mound and the other one was in the dugout, and then when it would flip-flop, their roles would flip-flop. I mean, you could see, and we went out there and, punched out 15 last weekend with Brady on the mound, and then Greg comes back and he punches out 15 again back-to-back days. So pretty impressive. The other thing that I would say is that through the first 2 weeks of the season, Brady came out of the bullpen, was pretty dominant against Stevenson in a relief appearance, and he comes back and starts against a startup program in New Rochelle and does what he does. Now you kind of know that the bar is set a lot higher when you see him come out and you do it against the number one team in the country over 7 innings. And just really, he controlled the whole tempo and pace of that game. We had the momentum from the time he took the ball really until the time he left the mound. Obviously we went down there 2-0, but I think one of the other things that was such a nice feel, we went down 2-0, but we minimized in a situation where it could have been worse, where in years past it might have gotten away from us with other people on the mound. It didn't, because he was able to control things. And it just gave us the opportunity to come back and be in the ball game and feel like we had a chance. So anytime you hand the ball to somebody, you want them to give us as a team a chance to win. He did that and more. And again, it was just against the number one team in the country, and a team that's really had our number since we started playing them in 2015. I told the guys before we got off the bus, we've been up against these guys for this would have been 4th year in a row. Haven't fared very well, 0-4 against them in our first 4 games against them, and certainly in bigger situations. But I told him, I said, going into the game on Sunday, I liked our chances, and certainly proved that way for us, but Brady had everything to do with that.
Well, and he's not the only one. Some of these other guys that have come in, not just on the pitching side of things, some of your new players have really contributed already early in the season. Jason Paredes, 3 hits in that one. Nick Furman, another 2 hits added to your total. Other guys who didn't play as big of roles last year, so guys like Evan Colon, another hit, 2 RBIs for him. He's really turned things around from a season ago. These new guys that have come in, not just on the pitching side, but on the defensive side and on the offensive side, what have they meant so far to this team that has led you to be 8-1 in the season?
Well, first and foremost, when we went into this year trying to replace or upgrade at certain positions, we were able to do that in certain spots where you're talking about Nick Furman and Jason Paredes. I mean, we lost Cody, who's now coaching with us, who did a great job over the last 2 seasons. We had to find a guy or guys, and right now it's just Jason doing the job back there to pick up the slack. We were very fortunate to have him, but he was a guy that we pinpointed early in the recruiting process, and we went after him hard, and we were able to make it work. Nick Furman's another guy. Was a D1 player coming out of high school, made his way back through the ranks, and we feel fortunate to have a guy that can hit in the middle of the order and do some different things for us position-wise. But both of these guys have worked their rears off and been really kind of professional in their work ethic and the way they went about their business, and I think set a great example even as new guys. But let's look back here. Evan Cologne, four-year player, minimal at bats. Just hasn't had much of an impact on our lineup, and he's just kind of grown into this opportunity. And you talk about a guy in a world where kids can't see past tomorrow if they can see that far. And this kid's just bided his time and just put in the work and persevered through. And now here he is being able to take advantage of an opportunity, a slot in the outfield where, we didn't know that he was going to be the guy. I just felt like, hey, he's a senior. He's earned the first opportunity, and he just hasn't relinquished it yet. So I'm very, very happy for him. Taking another two steps further, a guy in Pat Bosley, he's been fantastic for us, really solidified first base defensively, been a consistent force in our lineup since game one. And he was a guy that was hurt all of last season. Played with a torn labrum. The at bats that he got. He tore it in the first game, the fifth inning of the first game last year. So we didn't have him. And now you also see the fact that he's been able to go out there and do some things. And now you see a guy in Logan Corrigan who's really rebuilt himself. From last year to this year, and he's a force in the lineup as a DH, and then being able to pitch him as well. Just some of these guys that didn't have the impact that we thought last year are now able to have the impact that we thought that they could originally. And it's nice to see Evan step up, and especially in some spots. We started two freshmen in the outfield on Sunday. Berger and Bogey didn't get to play with injuries. Berger came in late and defensively replaced because he could do that for us. And then yesterday, we're without Furman, without Bogard. Berger did the same thing for us. We're starting these young guys or inexperienced guys, and we're just getting it from a bunch of different places. And I think that the confidence that some of these pitchers have allowed us to do some different things defensively or in and out of the lineup with different guys. And, so far it's just made for a fun process, and you're kind of seeing some of the fruits of our labor from a recruiting standpoint coming into the season, and the guys' work and the time and energy they put in throughout, since we got here in September. You're seeing some of that come to fruition, which is really fun to see.
Yeah, Evan Cologne so far this year, 357, 12 RBIs in his 8 starts, a real change for him from a year ago. The other game this week was Stevenson, and that one ended up being on Monday. As I mentioned, we're recording on Tuesday instead of Monday this week, and obviously the big storyline, if anybody's read the story that's up on frostburgsports.com already, it's Greg Schneider and what he's done so far this year. 1 strike away from a no-hitter and a weak ground ball that just kind of squirted its way through the middle of the infield. But again, for him, 15 strikeouts, dominating a Stevenson team that's already seen you guys a couple times this year, so they can know what to expect from time to time with what you're going to throw at him. Greg Schneider this year, his ERA 0.41 and 45 strikeouts in total. We expected him to be the big horse on the mound this year. We expected him to have a good year. I don't think we expected him to dominate the way that he has so far this season. He's been absolutely untouchable.
Let's just say that this kid has had this kind of in him all along. What you're seeing is a guy who has taken it to another level, grown and matured and worked, and come into a senior year where he had no reason to pitch with a chip on his shoulder and pitching with a chip on his shoulder. It has something to do with the fact that Brady's there nipping at his heels. That helps. And some of these competition. Some of these other guys too. There's been some other guys who've done some really good things on the mound. They just haven't had as much opportunity as these other two guys. I have never sat in a dugout and wanted something for one guy so much as I did yesterday for him to complete that no-hitter. You start paying attention at about the 5th inning. I started paying attention and knew, what's going on. In the 8th inning, my palms started to sweat. In the 9th inning, your heart rate gets up, and I wanted it for him. The guys meant so much to this program and accomplished so many things. How neat would it have been? And I told the team after the game, you go in with Brady against Cortland and beat the number 1 team in the country, and then you follow it up with a 1 strike away from a no-hitter. It's been a pretty fun 24 hours for this program. Greg has been. It's really kind of immeasurable, I think, what he means to us and to this group. You obviously have the calming effect when you know on the mound that he's got the ball. Or excuse me, in the dugout that he's got the ball. We go, like I said, we go into yesterday without our leadoff hitter, our 3-hole hitter, or excuse me, our 4-hole hitter. A guy's been our 4-hole hitter. Our 3-hole hitter and our 4-hole hitter. Berger, Bogey, Furman, all out of the lineup with injuries. Plug in some young guys. Had to shuffle some guys around. Civic plays right field for the first time this year. Brett Fogel plays second base for the first time this year. Meg Takovich made his second start at third base this year. So you're just kind of shuffling things around, but you got a chance because the guy on the mound has been dictating so heavily what's going on. And he did it as well as he's ever done it before yesterday. I mean, those guys have seen him. They faced him. He could have told him what was coming yesterday, and it would have mattered because he was that unhittable. And he's in a different stratosphere right now. Not just in the competition that he's faced, but you'd be hard pressed to find another guy going as good in the entire country as well as he's going right now. And I forget the fact that we've won the games.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the fact that he set these records and things like that. I mean, there's probably has there ever been a back-to-back 15 strikeout performance in the history of Division III? Good luck finding it. I'm really, really just happy for him, and it's that simple. A guy who deserves some of these things. I'm really excited and happy for him, and I'm happy that I get to keep handing him the ball.
Well, I mean, I think everybody in Division III right now would be happy handing him the ball. He's been by far and above the best pitcher in Division III so far this season, and we'll most likely get to see him again coming up this weekend. Your team gets quite a few days off. You don't play again until this upcoming Saturday when you take on Eastern. You travel back down to Owings Mills, Maryland to take on Eastern and Elmira back-to-back days, Saturday and Sunday. Let's start with that Eastern game. What can you tell us about that team, and what does your team have to do to come away with a victory?
To be perfectly honest with you, I haven't spent a lot of time, looking ahead. We will this week. I don't know a lot about either program. We've never played them in my, 10 plus years here. I know Elmira's had some success, been in the postseason. The Eastern, I know less about, just because they haven't maybe been on the regional or the national stage, at least here in the recent past. But at the end of the day, this weekend's going to have to be about some other guys. You talk about possibly seeing Schneider again. You probably won't see him this weekend, just being the game on Monday. And we've got to put some other guys out there. We're not going to win just keeping running Brady out there and Greg out there. We can't accomplish our ultimate goals with just two guys. It will not work. If we're going to move forward here in the conference and the conference tournament and hopefully on into the NCAA postseason, you got to have 3, you got to have 4, you got to have 5, probably 5 starters and then several relievers you can rely on. And we just haven't had the chance with getting cut short a game this past weekend. And, with only 2 games coming, moving forward over actually the next 2 weeks, 4 games total, we got to find out about some other guys here, and we got to take this opportunity to do it and almost force ourselves to do it because, yes, we want to win these games, but we can't be short-sighted here and not think about the future. So it'll be nice to be able to hand Logan Corrigan the ball again and get some other guys involved out of the bullpen and get some guys back going here. And hopefully the weather will cooperate over the next 2 weeks, and we'll have the opportunity to do that. So I'm excited about this weekend. We thought going into this past weekend it was going to kind of be like a mini regional Keystone, Cortland, and then Stevenson didn't kind of with the way that nor'easter blew through here. It didn't work out that way. But feel good about the 2 wins that we did get and what we're doing moving forward as a team. But looking forward, it'll be fun to kind of see if we can go out and do some things in a positive way with some different guys on the mound and get some other guys going here and try to carry this over, in the next, I guess, 2.5 weeks till we start conference play.
Well, you kind of answered my next question was going to be, if you're not going to throw Greg, can you give us a little preview of who it's going to be? But you already threw that name out there in Logan Corrigan.
Yeah, we have to give Logan the ball. He deserves the opportunity to start. I mean, he's been really, really good too. As we're talking about these 2 other guys, his numbers are outstanding too in the few innings he's thrown. So excited about getting him back out there. There's a bunch of other guys that I got to see get the ball again too. I mean, we haven't given Marco the ball. We haven't given Richardson the ball. We haven't given Ryzik the ball. We just haven't had the chance to do it. You couldn't take the ball away from Greg yesterday with a no-hitter going to the ninth. I mean, that just isn't going to happen. Chase DeLos is another guy who's been, really good for us, and we got to get him back on the mound and get him going. So I'm excited about the opportunity to do some of that stuff, and I'm hopeful that, over the next 2 games we can get, 5, 6 guys back out there and try to get our staff a little bit more well-rounded. So, again, you don't want the load to be, on, 1, 2, 3 guys. You can't win that way. Even though in conference tournament play, it comes to that stuff. But you got to have other guys prepared to step up and step in. We're 9 games into the season. We have 31 more to go, hopefully, with the regular season, and then several games in the postseason. It's going to take a group effort in order to accomplish what we want to accomplish and what I think is realistic at this point. And the expectation, the bar is going up. I mean, it's not just a matter of, hey, we want to get back in the conference tournament anymore. I mean, I think we've kind of proven that we're back in that mix as long as we stay healthy and we stay focused on what we're doing. We hope to be, beyond conference tournament play and talking about conference championship play. But that's a ways down the road still. We got some work to do over the next couple weeks in order to get started in that point. And it's going to take more than 2 guys on the mound and success from some other places in order to get prepared to roll into conference against Marymount in 2.5 weeks.
Well, Guy, thanks for your time. Hopefully we're talking to you next Monday after 2 more wins this upcoming weekend.
Let's hope so.
Joined now on the Bobcast by head tennis coach Aaron Wilf. Coach, both of your teams, your men and your women, getting started with their spring schedule on Saturday and Sunday, a combination one at McDaniel on Saturday, a win for the women, a loss for the men, and then a tough day on Sunday down at Salisbury. Let's start with that day on Saturday, and we'll start on a positive note with what the women were able to do against McDaniel. A 7-2 win, and a lot of the girls having really good performances. The one that stood out to me was Allison Paul getting her win in the singles and in the doubles. A large group of girls picking up 2 wins on the afternoon. All in all, I think you'd have to be very, very happy with what the women showed against McDaniel.
Yeah, it was a great day at McDaniel for the women. Final score 7-2. So good performances all around. I thought it was a solid team win. Really, everyone contributed. Yeah, not really a whole lot of complaints with the girls on Saturday. Great day, tough conditions, very windy down in Westminster, Maryland. But I thought they overcame adversity and rolled up their sleeves, went to work, and got a good win.
Allison Paul, Sammy Turner, Sophia Staggers, and Elizabeth Mott all picking up the wins in the singles, and then the combinations of Paul and Staggers and Turner and Mott getting the wins in the doubles. Looking at it, when you look at it from top to bottom, the 6 girls that are competing on any given day, how do you go about deciding who's going to be partnered together in the doubles? Who's going? How do you form those chemistries and see who is going to work well and possibly come away with a couple wins like you did?
I think you just have to try different combinations. I think days like Saturday helped us. I think it gives us some knowledge in terms of where the chemistry is, like you said, and who's going to play well with who. And it's one thing to see on a practice court. It's a whole other thing to see on a match court. And I think you just have to see it. They have to go out there. They have to compete, and they have to execute. We certainly liked what we saw with the combinations of Paul, Staggers, Turner, Mott. Can't guarantee that it's going to continue to be those combinations moving forward. But, I think they got off to a great start and certainly made a case that they should be playing together.
Your men, on the other hand, a 5-4 loss to McDaniel in what was an extremely close match. Shasta Braithwaite continues to dominate in the singles side of things, 6-3, 6-3. His win. What does he provide to this team? He seems to be your most consistent competitor, top to bottom, every single week.
Shasta's very solid. We had him number 1 singles, number 1 doubles. We just love what we see with him. We know what we're going to get really before the match starts with him. He's all heart. He's hustle, moves his feet. He just thinks well. He has a very high tennis IQ. And, I'll keep saying the same thing. We just know what we're going to get with him. He's the consummate number 1 singles player, and he's going to continue to do big things for us. And I think the guys look at him as one of the leaders on the team, and we're going to follow his lead. He's going to continue to do big things for us.
On the doubles side on Saturday, again, 2 wins. It seems like this weekend where your team really had success was in the doubles competitions. Is there any reason for that you would think that your teams succeed more in the doubles competitions than the singles competitions? At least from my knowledge, it would seem like players enjoy playing the singles competitions more, but it seems like your group of athletes really enjoys playing together.
Yeah, it was a good, I think overall doubles performance at McDaniel. We got to see Shasta Nolan Jones, which they dropped a tough one at #1 doubles, but I thought they played very, very well. Like the combination of Aaron Beckner and Nate Farlow at 2, they got a good win, 8-3. And really enjoyed seeing Joey Cox, Derek Thompson playing at #3 doubles. They won 8-1, so I think all 3 doubles played extremely well. Definitely happy with the performance in the doubles. Moving on to the singles, it was, like you said, it was a very close battle. I think there's a lot of positive takeaways that we walked away thinking about. I think we started off matches very, very well. We won a lot of first sets. I think we had some obstacles in closing out those matches, but overall great performance. Again, brutal conditions out there weather-wise, but yeah, onwards and upwards, and hopefully next one's going to be a lot better.
On Sunday, then your team traveled down to Salisbury to take on the Seagulls. Before we even talk about the matches from Sunday, not a lot of sports at the collegiate level do you see play back-to-back days. You see the baseballs do it, sure. You see the softballs do it, sure. Those are two sports that historically have always done that. How difficult is it for in a sport like tennis to do a singles match and a doubles match one day and then turn around and do the same thing again the next day and factor in the travel as well?
Yeah, it's not easy. I can't really compare to other sports. I really don't know or have the expertise to do that. But it's certainly a challenge. You're playing 9 matches on each side, and then you kind of double that when you're doing back to back. So yeah, you're looking at 18 total matches in a very brief period of time. And when you have student athletes that are playing both singles and doubles, that's certainly a lot for them. So I would say, especially this weekend with the travel and with the conditions, we had wind gusts up to, I think they said about 40 miles an hour certain days. So I mean, it was very brutal, very cold. They were not great conditions for a tennis match on both of those 2 days, but I'm going to give my team a ton of credit. There was no complaining. They just went to work. They knew what they had to do, and I could not be more proud of the effort.
The day on Sunday down at Salisbury, a little bit more of a difficult day for both your teams. 2 8-1 losses. We'll put these two together. What did Salisbury do on both the men's and the women's side that you think caused your athletes some problems on the courts on Sunday?
Well, I think first and foremost they're just a very good team. I don't think you can substitute that. I think they have experience. They're a phenomenal team. I think they were #3 in the preseason polls in tennis, and they're always in the conversation nationally. They just always are, whether they're in the top 25 or they're close to top 25. They're just a very, very solid team. Hats off to them. Good win for them. But I think there was a lot of positives that we took away from those matches as well.
What are some of those positives that you think in a loss like that you can take away from those?
Well, individually, in terms of the men's match, we had Shasta and Nolan Jones at #1 doubles. To my knowledge, that was our first individual win in school history ever against Salisbury. I was looking back through the archives. Everything I saw was 09, all the years. So I believe that was our first ever individual win against Salisbury University for Frostburg State. So big kudos to Shasta Nolan. It was a great win. But, looking at the scores, everyone really competed. I mean, Nolan's been a great pickup for us down at #2 singles, 7-5, 6-3. I mean, it was a really solid match. He played really well. So, but just everyone competed. There was no giving up, and I thought that was a strong takeaway. There was a lot of heart, a lot of hustle on the court. No one gave up. On the women's side, we had Ijama Yoahimo, and she played #6 singles on the women's side. This was her first ever collegiate tennis match, and she got a big win for us. Tiebreaker in the first set, then 6-3 in the second. And to the best of my knowledge, that was only the 3rd time that a Frostburg State women's tennis player has an individual win against Salisbury in school history. So big kudos to her as well. I'm looking at the #3 doubles match, Sammy Turner, Elizabeth Mott, 8-4. I thought they were very competitive. But overall, Sophia Staggers looked really good in the first set at number 4 singles. So again, same thing on the men's side. A lot of heart, no quit. So proud of the efforts, and onwards and upwards to the next one.
That onwards and upwards comes this week, at least on one side. It's a little bit of a weird week for your teams. The men are in action. They take on Geneva, but the women, they get a break. They get a week off before you travel for your spring break trip. And as a coach, how kind of difficult is that to know, okay, well, I coach both these teams. One of them is in action. One of them isn't. Do you focus maybe more on the men this week than the women? Do they get more of a rest? How do you kind of handle the practices heading into one team one team having a match and one team not?
Yeah, it's certainly not easy. I think right now with the men, like you said, we have Geneva coming up, so I think with them it's just one focus. We're not always doing the same exact things with the men and with the women. I mean, they're two separate teams, two different schedules at times. So right now with the men, we are focused on Geneva. We're kind of hoping the weather is going to be pretty good on Saturday. You never know this time of the year, but we're all hoping for decent weather. Geneva's a team I think we know fairly well. I've been playing against them now for many, many years, dating back to my previous 2 schools. So I know they beat us 6-3 the last time we played them in the fall, but we do have some new additions to our roster that we're excited about, and we certainly think it's going to be a competitive match. Hopefully we get it in, and we're just excited to go on Saturday. We're going to have a really good week of practice. Yeah, with the girls, next match is not until Virginia Wesleyan, which is on our spring break trip. So we're going to try to do everything we can to get ready. I know we have some girls that are pretty banged up after this weekend. Definitely, I think a taxing weekend for all of our student athletes. So I think we're going to try to maybe rest up a little bit this week, let them recover, and then get back to the grind and try to get ready for 3, I think, big matches for us over our spring break trip.
One more thing before I let you go. This Geneva team that the men will take on Saturday, what can you tell us? What do you know about this Geneva team, and how do you game plan for them?
It's going to be a lot of trying to play to our strengths. We're not going to, talk too much about Geneva, what they do. At least publicly, I'm not going to go out and divulge too many secrets on that matchup. But like I said, it's definitely a team we know fairly well. I think it's going to be about, where are our weaknesses? How can we rectify those situations? How can we play to our strengths? Just I think little tweaks here and there are really going to help us for this Geneva match. We feel good about where we are, but every day is a chance to get better, as I always like to say. That's what we're going to try to do this week, and we're going to try to bring our A game and try to compete as hard as we can this weekend against Geneva.
Well, Coach, thanks for your time. Best of luck to your men on Saturday when they take on Geneva, and we'll talk to you again next Monday. I'm joined now by head track and field coach Dale Louie. Coach, the full complement of athletes not on display this week for Frostburg State, but your team was at the ECAC championships, and really what a weekend it was for some of your athletes. I mean, we'll start with Kayla like we usually do because she has been just unbelievable in her 4 years here at Frostburg, but goes out, defends her ECAC championship from a year ago in the 60-meter, and on top of that, she adds the 200-meter title, and on top of that, she helps the 4x400 team win the ECAC championship. I mean, it's just unbelievable at this point what this girl's been able to accomplish in her time here.
Yeah, she certainly did have a great weekend. Probably not as good as she or I really wanted. We were looking for some faster times in the individual events and things, and she achieved that, slightly there in the 60 and the 200 for the third time now. She's matched her, her school record time. So very nice. She ran probably the best 400-meter split in the 1,600-meter relay that she's ever run. She had a good weekend, and looking forward to one more big week here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's a good problem to have when you can go and say that she won 3 titles and you still weren't terribly happy with it. You're looking for faster times between the two of you. I mean, the ceiling for her, we've seen the bar has been raised time and time again. So, I mean, we've come to expect that. With that 4x400 meter team, it was her, it was Destiny Logan, Maddie Watson, and Kayleen Estrada. We knew that was a good foursome coming into the ECACs. Did you expect that foursome to be able to win the championship?
Well, we came in. I think we came in seeded first, but there are a lot of good teams there, and running on a bank track, which we are not familiar with at all. This first time ever for most of our people. So you never quite know how they react to that, because that's a whole different experience and stuff. Uh, I think they were well aware that Wesley was after them. Wesley made it to the national championship meet last year and did extremely well in several events, including that one. And I know that they were not happy that they lost their CAC title to us, so it was a chance for a little revenge on their part. And they, we both teams pushed it neck and neck the whole way. So they really helped us out, and I think maybe we helped them out too in terms of they certainly ran a season best time as well.
Destiny Logan, 2 other top 5 finishes, and one in the 400, finishing 4th, and she also went out and set a personal best in the 200 while finishing 5th. Her improvement, we've talked about time and time again, has been astronomical this season, but as a whole, that collective of girls helped the team. I guess in the ECACs, the team placement may not be as big, but 48 points overall and finished 5th out of a 29-team field. You have to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, clearly the way the scoring works, when you get some champions in there, and we had 3 of them, you're starting off pretty good. But we did pick up a number of other points there, which was great. And they took a picture of everybody after the meet was over, and Destiny had more medals hanging on her than anyone else. And she carried a heavy load this weekend and performed extremely well. Unfortunately, our handoffs weren't very good at all in the 4x2 relay. Otherwise, I think we would have been coming home with something a little better there as well. And so that was a little disappointment, on all of our parts. But the women all ran very, very hard and did a great job there.
The talk of the meet on the men's side may have very well been what John Kearns did in the weight throw, not only winning the competition, but also in the process setting a new Frostburg State school record. I mean, it's just been event after event after event with this guy this year. It's been unbelievable what he's been able to do, and he's in some now elite class with that new record in the weight throw.
Yeah, it's nice to see that he's now popping them out over 16 on a somewhat regular basis. That's always a good sign, I think, in our sport, because it sometimes tends to suggest better things are right around the corner and stuff. And he's a young thrower, so you figure he's going to grow into it, and he has. The question becomes just how committed will he be to continuing to work on his technique, and that's really going to help determine just how far he does go.
The other top finishes, Robert Romano, a 3rd place finish in the mile run. Shamar Nelson, a 7th place finish in the 60-meter. Looking at the men that you took to the ECAC championships, how do you judge it from top to bottom, what your guys were able to do?
Very pleased there, too. Robbie did have a good mile. He ran an exceptional anchor leg again in the DMR for us. 2 of the other guys there, Tyreek and Jake Rickards, ran season best splits for us in their legs and stuff. So they've established themselves as a distance team that, because they're so young, should continue to get better, and that just adds another facet of some strength to our team, because we do want to be a total track and field team, and the distance side is starting to round around a little bit there. Shamar, unfortunately, had a great trial. Ran a personal best there. Unfortunately, he hurt his leg there in the finals and stuff, and just really wasn't. I mean, he finished the race, and so that was a little bit of a disappointment there, and consequently, because of that, he couldn't compete in a 200. He had to scratch out of that. So, a little disappointing on his side of things, but I know he's happy about that PR that he set in the prelims.
Well, now that the ECACs are behind your team, a little bit of a break for you, and it's got to be a little bit of a strange time now to have about almost 3 full weeks without an actual competition. I mean, we've been talking to you all year. You're the only coach that we get to talk to from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, from starting with cross country. But it's got to be nice now to have a little bit of a break. Is there anything you do a little bit differently now that you're transitioning from the indoor season to the outdoor season?
Well, we have one more week with Kayla at the national championships. So it actually gets to be even a little bit crazier. We're juggling that with just what you're asking about. Transitioning from indoor to outdoor there. And we I think I've said this before. Our big challenge as coaches is to try to keep these people focused on their training, because once we hit outdoors. The weather is such in the spring that you better, we say this all the time to them. I don't know if they listen to us, but, you better be ready to perform when that nice day shows up. It may be that first meet in March, may be, 75, 80 degrees, perfect weather, no wind, be ready to roll. So you just don't know. That's the thing we harp on is the focus, continue to get better. We have different events for some of these people outdoors. So for all of them, it's slightly a little bit different. Even your runners, the pacing changes a little bit. Hurdles, you're going from 60 meters to, for the guys, 110, for the women, 100 meters. Same thing with the sprinters, are going a little bit longer, from 60 to 100. So there's a lot of change there. Hammer throw is different than the weight throw. Some of it's the same, but it's a whole different event and stuff. And so this time here right now is a very important transition time to try to certainly get ready for that outdoors competition.
Well, that outdoor competition starts on March 24th when you head to Juniata. We'll talk to you about that in the coming weeks. But, of course, next week, Kayla does have the NCAA championships down in Birmingham, Alabama. What do you hope to see out of her in the championships? Of course, a national title would be great. That would be the ultimate goal at the end of the day. But what do you think? What do you hope to see out of her?
Well, I'd be quite happy if she can run a personal best. Anything else on top of that is I think gravy. Icing on the cake, whatever you want to say. We very much think that she's ready to pop, a big one, because she has been running, her best times have come one right on top of the other here. So we're hoping that, that's a good sign. The other thing too, simplistically, our mantra always is when there's qualifying, make it to finals, make it to finals, so that's really step one. Run a good race, make it to finals, and then it's another day to see what happens.
Well, we wish her the best of the luck this weekend at the NCAA championships, and you enjoy the ride down to Alabama, the nice long ride down there, and we'll talk to you again next time around.
All right, thank you.
Joined now by head women's lacrosse coach Haley WHEAR. Coach, I can only call this, in my estimation, a strange week for the women's lacrosse program at Frostburg. Just the way that it started to the way that it ended, it was a bit of an up and down roller coaster ride. And we'll start with that first game. 3 games in 1 week, first off, is a lot for a lacrosse program, and you get 3 this week, and you start at West Virginia Wesleyan, and it ends in a 12-12 tie that is called due to darkness, and there's all sorts of other crazy caveats that went into that. Have you ever come across something like that since you've started coaching? It was just an odd situation from start to finish.
It was definitely strange. I think that having a game start at 5 p.m. in February with no lights is never going to work. So we kind of went into it knowing that we probably wouldn't get in the full game. And I just think that the outcome of it was we played 80%, which is what we need to play, which is down to 12 minutes. And it just happened that it ended in a 12-12 tie. So
you move on from what happened there to Washington and Jefferson, and that was a fantastic game for your girls from top to bottom, offensively putting up 20 goals in that contest against the Presidents. Looking at it, you have to be extremely happy with what you saw from your girls on the road on Thursday.
I think that game was exceptionally well for us because of the circumstances. So coming off of Tuesday's game and kind of being tired, and then we went into Washington, Pennsylvania, and it was pouring down rain the whole game. And so I think for us to kind of come together and rise above and have a lot of new people step up, I think that was exciting and put us in a good place on that Thursday.
That one, Morgan Cavey led your team in scoring for the game, 6 goals. She's got 15 already on the season. She was a very good player for you a year ago, but it seems like she's really taken her game to the next level at this point. What have you seen from Morgan so far in this season? What kind of improvements did you see from her from last season to now, and what kind of work did you see out of her in the offseason that has put her in this kind of position?
I think the biggest thing with Morgan has really come from her leadership role. I think that she knows that she can put up those points, and I think that she has successfully done so last year and this year. But I think really leading the team, and so to have her kind of pushing the other attack members, and so for Jara to have 6 points as well, or 6 goals that game, was huge, just to kind of share that spotlight with some other people and be able to kind of lead them and still lead our attack without having to be the sole person putting up numbers.
Abigail McClure had herself a nice game in that one as well. Allowed the 10 goals, had 5 saves in that one. It seems like we'll get to the full goalkeeping situation in a minute, because you did go with 2 goalkeepers on Saturday. But it seemed like defensively in that game as well, your team was on lockdown and showed some great strides into what kind of a defensive team they can be.
I think that the defense really stepped up that game. I think that Lachelle Coates with 6 caused turnovers, and then Gabby Wilkins, a freshman, she came out of nowhere and just had a phenomenal game. I don't think that she got all the stats that actually really happened for her that game, but she really stepped up, and I think that just shows a little bit more success down there that we're excited about for the rest of the season.
Now, the game on Saturday, a game that your team led 6-1 early on, Susquehanna able to climb their way back into that one. It was a 15-12 loss that your team took. You did go with the 2 keepers in that game. Abigail McClure started the game again. She ended up with 4 saves. And then Emily Mayo came in, had 4 saves as well, some big ones in that second half. What led to that decision to split the time between the 2 goalkeepers? Was it a decision that was made prior to the game, or was it something that was spur of the moment that said, hey, maybe everything's not clicking for us, let's try a goalkeeper change, see if we can figure some things out?
I think it's a little bit of both. We've talked all season about splitting both keepers first half and second half, and if things are going well or one keeper's off during warm up or we kind of notice some things, then we'll make adjustments accordingly. But I think that's been the plan. And then when our team let them come back 7-7 at halftime, I think it was time that we just needed to switch something up. And so we switched a lot of people all over the field, and Emily to Abby was just one of them. So
Molly Biggers with 3 goals in that game. Morgan Cavey with 3 goals in that game once again. And then we had a weird situation where I know it's a possibility, but I don't think I've seen it since I've been here and started calling women's lacrosse games, that we actually had a goal waved off. And the weirder thing about it was she scored 3 goals already before it was waved off and was using the same stick. What did you see at that point? That was her stick actually illegal? Was it the right call, or did they just not do their due diligence, the officials, in making that decision?
I think it's a little bit of everything. So one of our assistants had asked after the game if specifically they could show us what went wrong with the stick. And so a lot of it is ball placement of where they put the ball. A lot of it is your stick does kind of loosen up over time with the runner. That runner in particular really is kind of a struggle to tighten as much as possible. So we have worked on it, and each time we pull it, and when we have timeouts, we make sure that everyone's sticks are legal and where they need to be. But I think that the placement of the ball was a little bit off, and it, like we said though at halftime, I mean, there's just nothing that we could have done about it at that time. We needed to not make excuses and figure things out from there, and so she took it off and we left it out the rest of the game, and we got a new stick, and she still did some big things for us. So
Summer Cavey also with 2 goals in that one. So between the 2 Cavey sisters, you have 5 goals. Summer assisting Morgan assisting Summer, going back and forth. At one point, they scored a pair of goals within the same minute, Morgan scoring the first, Summer scoring the second. What kind of chemistry? I mean, I know you've dealt with sisters with the Hart twins last year. What kind of chemistry do these two have on the field? And it's just fun to watch.
It is really fun. I think that they have a great chemistry because they get along so well off of the field as well, and I think that carries over. And they've been playing together for so long, being only 2 years apart. So in high school they played together, and it's just kind of carried over. And so I think that they necessarily kind of naturally look to each other, but I think that they've done great things individually as well. And so to have them now working together is just an added bonus for us.
Well, you did tell me after the game on Wednesday that it was a tough week having to play 3 games in 1 week. Is it nice now to kind of get a little bit of a rest? You get 7 days off before the next one. We'll talk about that game against Bridgewater on Saturday in a minute, but is it nice to just get to chill for a few days and let the girls recover instead of being out there every day, every other day really is what it was for the last week, and putting them through the grind?
It is nice. The way that our spring break lines up is a little bit later compared to most Division III schools that have lacrosse. So because of that, most teams have either spring break this week or next week. So for us to fit in the amount of games when teams aren't traveling to Western Maryland for spring break, that's why we had to kind of push the game up ahead to last week where we had 3. So to get this full week is really nice for our girls to kind of take in. We can spend a lot of time watching film and work on our game plan, to have 1 day to work on our game plan, fix what we did from the game before, and then add our new game plan in to practice in 1 day is a little tough. And so I think we took a hit last week, and I'm excited for this week to kind of get back on track for Saturday.
Well, you mentioned the being able to watch film and really focus on Bridgewater. Is there anything that you do maybe differently in a week such as this, practice-wise, that maybe you wouldn't do in a week where you have multiple games, but you can kind of sit back and do things differently now that you only have 1?
I think that this week we'll spend some time with the girls actually watching film. So before last week, because we were on such a time crunch, we clipped a lot of film and then just showed them certain clips and kind of moved through it as fast as possible to get out to actually practice it. This week, I think having the full week, we can spend some time actually having them watch a couple different games and getting an idea of some different ideas that they might do on attack or defense, and really stick to our game plan so that we know going into Saturday 100% that this is what we've worked all week for.
So you do get Bridgewater on Saturday here at Bobcat Stadium. Last year you played Bridgewater as well. It was a tough game for your girls. Bridgewater got the victory 18-7. Where do you think your team has changed from this point last year against Bridgewater to this point this year, and what can you tell us about Bridgewater going into the game on Saturday?
Bridgewater's a tough team. I am excited to have them on the schedule again. I think that they've had a couple big wins this season already. So they beat Christopher Newport, and so that's a huge win for them, and I would be excited if I were them as well. So I am excited that kind of we can turn around and watch some of those games and see what worked and didn't work and how we can kind of close the gap on that score from last year. I think our team is completely different, and I am excited that this year we're home and so that we don't have to travel down there, and especially having this entire week now instead of playing a midweek game should help a lot as well.
All right, Coach. Well, best of luck to you and your team on Saturday against Bridgewater, and hopefully we're talking to you next Monday after a big win. I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head softball coach Wes Landrum. Coach, a tough weekend for your team, a doubleheader against a very good team in Randolph-Macon, a 6-0 loss and a 10-2 loss in the 2 games. Is there anything, though, that you can take away from those 2 games and come away with as a positive, knowing that you have an extremely young team? It's still very early in the season, and they're 2 losses to a very, very good Randolph-Macon team.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you lose, you want to try to take something positive away from it. I think the biggest positive for us is seeing how they were able to take advantage of our smaller mistakes and turn them into runs, and that's what we try to do to other teams. I think the best sort of way to deal with it is when you have other teams do it to you. Unfortunately, it happened, a couple different times on Saturday. But from a positive standpoint, you can go back and say, look, this is when they did this, and this is how it worked against us. This is what we want to try to do to other teams. So it was good eye-opening, hopefully, for them.
Between the 2 games, in both games, you had at least, if not more at a time, 5 players in the game at one time that were not on this roster last season. I know there's a bit of a developmental curve with that. You have to learn what these players are capable of, and the first years have to get acclimated to playing at the collegiate level. Do you think so far that it's been a good learning curve? They've shown progress in the 6 games that you've played so far, and there's a lot of promise for these players that have not been on your roster until this point going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think we as coaches expect the learning curve to be quicker.
Mm-hmm. You want it to be, at least.
For sure. And I think the expectation that we have is we will continue to be successful regardless of who we do put out there, trusting, what we do in practice and trusting the recruits that we have, coming in year to year. I think that the hardest part has been getting to know each other, getting comfortable with each other, and not being complacent with what we do. It is difficult to have that many new players in a lineup. It's not a good excuse necessarily, but I think as far as your second question is, are we seeing growth? Yes, we are seeing growth. They're getting put in situations that they haven't seen before in games. They're around better athletes. Their teammates are better in college than they were in high school typically. And so, I think a lot of those things sort of combine. Saturday was more of a perfect storm of a good team and good pitching and doing things to us that we just weren't ready to handle necessarily. I think it's a different scenario 2 months from now when we have a chance to sort of continue to play regularly. The week off in between probably didn't help us, just the way the schedule set up a little bit different this year. But it is hard for them to grow when we don't play. And so I think now that we're in an every weekend scenario plus midweek games will start in a couple of weeks, I think will do nothing but benefit us.
One player that everybody on this team had their eye on coming into the season, of course, was Allison Short. She was your top pitcher coming into the season. She still is your top pitcher at this point. She struggled a little bit to start this campaign. Obviously, I'm sure you're not concerned about her. I don't think that's really the right way to phrase it. But is there anything that you've seen out of Allison in the first couple weeks of the season that you think that has caused her a bit of issues and something that you think that she's going to be capable of fixing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any concerns about her or her performance. I think that a lot of it is to new environments, and a lot of it is just us figuring out the right tandems of pitcher catcher and then infield outfield wise making some plays. I don't think she pitched poorly on Saturday. The results say a little bit differently maybe, but she's making good pitches and sometimes hits fall and sometimes we don't make a play, and a lot of times that's the difference between a 1-run inning and a crooked number inning, and I think we fell a little bit a victim of that. So I mean, I think we need everyone to play better, not just but I mean, specifically her. No, I'm not worried about her.
The offense was a bit quiet this weekend too. Only 2 hits per game. One of them being Brittany Platt had a 2 RBI double. Offensively, was Randolph-Macon's pitching doing anything that was causing the girls some trouble that you could think of off the top of your head? And how do you go ahead and rectify the slow offensive start that your team has had at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't make enough contact this weekend, which is not super typical of us. Again, it's a different team, so finding out what we're good at is important. When you only have 10 base runners in a doubleheader, it doesn't give you a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things. Hamstrings us from the ability to run and to bunt and to do some different things that put some pressure on them that we weren't able to do because we just didn't have enough base runners. As far as trying to rectify the situation, yeah, I mean, I think they have good pitching, and we didn't stay true to what we're good at, which is an adjustment we got to make moving forward.
This upcoming weekend, you're going to get a good look at what your team is capable of. You get 4 non-conference games against some good competition. New Platts, Kuka, Hunter, and Roanoke, the 4 that you're going to see down at Virginia Beach this weekend. What are you looking to see out of your team that maybe you haven't seen so far this season? And what can you tell us about some of that competition that your girls are going to face down at Virginia Beach?
I think basically what I want to see is aggressiveness in the box from a standpoint of pitch selection and being able to attack what we are trying to do offensively. Something we didn't do at all on Saturday. That was disappointing for me. We'll be better on that Friday, Saturday. Competition-wise, right now it's more about what we can do or what we're trying to get better at ourselves more than it is about the other team in my book. whether or not the competition, how they're going to stack up against us or how we play is more, indicative of us, I feel like, right now. So I'm more worried about how we're going to be playing than I'm worried about who our opponent is.
One last thing for you today, and that's the fact that your team still doesn't have a home game for a while. It doesn't start. The first scheduled one is from March 14th, and we know that could be a little bit of a fickle situation up here in the mountains. How difficult is it as a coach knowing that you have to travel for maybe almost a full month, if not more, before you even get an opportunity to play in Frostburg just because of the weather situations? It's out of your hand. How difficult is that to deal with for not just you but for your girls as well?
I mean, it's always difficult. It's not fun getting on buses all the time. It makes it a little bit easier, I think, if we could practice on our own field, which we haven't been able to do either. That to me is the hardest part about our climate and our location. It's not ideal to be on the road as much as we are. It is good bonding time for our kids, so there's that, which is a positive from that. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot more fun to play at home, and it's a lot more fun if the weather's warmer. We haven't had a real warm day yet to play in regardless. I think the highest we've gotten so far is about 55 maybe, so it hasn't been really spring-ish yet. But I think as we continue to move forward, that the biggest thing is getting on our field and practicing.
Having to travel this much, have you already mastered for this season the art of sleeping on a bus? Have you gotten used to it already?
This is year 13, so yeah. I mean, it's definitely what to take on the bus, what to have available. So lots of choices.
Well, Wes, thanks for your time. Good luck to your team this weekend down at Virginia Beach. Hopefully 4 wins to get you back to that above that 500 mark with the 4 wins would be nice, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right.
I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head men's lacrosse coach Tommy Pierce. Coach, let's start by taking a look at what happened for your squad this past week. I think all in all you have to be pretty happy with what you saw, especially we'll start with the first game on Wednesday against Lebanon Valley, a 14-3 victory, and it seemed like top to bottom everything was working for your team, offensively, defensively. Marks had a great game in goal. Everything seemed to go pretty much the way that you would have wanted it to do against Leb Val.
Yeah, one of the things I think I remember saying on Wednesday was that I feel like when we went up by a few, some guys started taking some kind of early chances in the offense that, you'd hope that they'd, maybe take care of the ball a little bit better in a close game. And I think that's something that definitely came back to haunt us on Saturday. So, we talked about that and maybe didn't quite take it to heart, unfortunately. But, obviously it's good to, win a game on a Wednesday, guys getting out of class, kind of running down to the field and everything and having to, get ready for a game pretty quickly. It's always great to get a win there.
Your team was a very good offensive team last year, and it seems like you've added some pieces, especially when you look at guys like Jason Clinton, who already has 10 goals in his first season in a Bobcat uniform. Right now, your margin, 42 goals so far this season. And would you say that the offense has been as good as you expected it to do? Do you think that there is some places that the offense still needs to improve, or are you happy with where it stands at this current moment?
I guess I would say that I wouldn't necessarily agree that we were a very good offense last year to begin with. I don't think we were scoring goals like we should last year. So I think right now, offensively, I think we're looking a little bit better than we were last year, not drastically better. I think we had 28 offensive possessions on Saturday, and we only scored 7 times. That's 25% of your offensive possessions. We're scoring 6 on 6 goals, which is not good. We scored 3 goals on man up. Our man down unit's been tough all year, and going into the season, we were really concerned about our face-off unit, and those guys have exceeded our expectations. And we think that when we give our offense that many opportunities to score, we should score a little bit more. But by turning it over and taking some really ill-advised shots early in offensive possessions, we kind of gave Washington Colleges plenty of opportunity to clear the ball, and we didn't take advantage of our face-off advantage that those guys gave us. So that kind of equalized the game, not being very efficient on offense, and that's what I think came back to haunt us on Saturday. So, we can talk about it a lot, but hopefully guys start to take it to heart, and it makes a difference for us moving forward. We're still early in the season. A lot of teams are figuring it out and winning and losing, and we need to figure it out just like everybody else here.
Last year, from last year, you returned 2 of your leading scorers in Cole Grove and Adam Gross, but Jason Clinton the first year has been your leading scorer. What kind of new element has he brought to your team that maybe it didn't have last year?
I think he's a great shooter. When he gets time and he gets his hands free, he finishes at a high percentage. So I don't think he's taken the most shots on the team, but he has the most goals. Yeah. So when he takes a shot, it's a pretty good shot to take, and he's finishing at a high percentage. So I think that the big thing that stands out for Jason is just that he's a good shooter in space, good shooter inside. Washington College had a pretty good game plan for him, so we need to work a little bit on what to do situationally with Jason a little bit. But he's eager to learn and really wants to win, so I think he'll take it to heart.
That game against Washington College on Saturday, it was a 13-10 loss for your squad. Clinton was held scoreless in that game. Keegan Colgrove with 4, Paul Rupert with 3 in that game. What do you think Washington College was able to do that gave your group of guys some difficulties?
Again, I think that and not taking anything away from Washington College, but I think just some impatience on offense is really the biggest problem that we had. They defended well. They're an organized defense, and we had to work for good shots, and we weren't really willing to a lot of times. Guys wanted to settle for a mediocre shot early. So, I think they were just playing a good, sound defense. They were organized, and when things didn't arise for us, opportunistically early in a possession, we weren't able to grind it out and work for great shots. So I think they just played a good, solid defense and made us have to work for it, and we didn't work for it. So I think the credit to Washington College's defense is just that they're, a good, sound, organized team defense.
Is there anything as a coach looking at what happened on Saturday that you still take away from and say, all right, maybe we grew in this area, maybe we can learn from this area? Is there any positives that you can still take from the game?
We were 17 of 25 on faceoffs. Sam Natvig, who we thought was going to be our top faceoff guy, hasn't. I think he practiced in 15, 20 minutes of our first practice. He's having back issues, and I don't know if he's going to return this year at all. So, we've made some adjustments on the wings, and Drew Mash has gotten in there and worked hard, and Matty Pagliaro, our freshman, has done an outstanding job. Our man up and our man down units, like I said, we've given up 1 goal on 10 man downs, and I think our man up unit is up over 50% right now. So, those units we need to, those are positive. Obviously, we don't want to get complacent in those areas. We're still going to continue to improve there, but we really need to get better on our half-field defense and our half-field offense moving forward if we're going to, be in contention for things come the end of the spring. And
there is you have 2 more weeks of non-conference competition before you jump into what is one of the most competitive conferences in Division III lacrosse in the CAC. Those 2 games this week, you get McDaniel on Wednesday, you get Cabrini on Saturday. Knowing what's coming up, your 4 non-conference games outside of those 2, the other 2 that remain are Messiah and Brockport, some very good competition. Is there anything that you want to see particularly improved on, particularly worked on in those games that your team is going to have to compete with the Salisburys, the Christopher Newports of this conference? Sure. Yeah, I think I've already touched on it, so I'm starting to sound a little bit repetitive right now. But, our team defense has to get better. I think obviously we can get a little better at one-on-one, but, we're not consistent in, sometimes we don't slide when we should. Sometimes we slide when we shouldn't. And, I think that guys just get a little bit jittery in games and kind of, start doing some things that they're not doing in practice that we need to address. And offensively, like I said, we need to convert at a higher rate. We can't, basically get an advantage in one area and then just, turn it right back over to the team because we're just, turning it over and settling for mediocre or even bad shots early in possession sometimes. So we need to grind it out and really identify, what's a good opportunity versus a bad opportunity and stop kind of settling for the bad ones. The good news is I think these are all things that we can address. And, there's a lot of really good teams out there with 2, 3, and 4 losses. So it's still early in the season. And I think all of our goals are still certainly within reach if we can, really address it and get guys mentally, in it a little bit more, and hopefully it makes huge dividends moving forward. Starting with Wednesday, the first game this week is at McDaniel. You have to travel down to Westminster. What can you tell us about the Green Terror, and what do you think your team is going to be able to exploit with that team? We've from watching film on those guys over the weekend, they've played a lot of zone. They've played a lot of high-pressure man. I think that from what Washington College put on film, we can expect that maybe they'll look at some of the success that Washington College had and try to do some similar things. So we need to be prepared offensively for just about anything that McDaniel can throw at us. I know last year, their defense played a lot of different defenses, and we had to kind of recognize and adjust and make sure we were
trying to do the right thing. So I think going into McDaniel, we can expect that Coach Euchre is going to get him giving us a hard time on the defensive end, really mixing it up and making us recognize what's going on. They graduated a lot of outstanding defensemen that have been their guys for 2 and 3 years. So they're young at defense, but they're not giving up a whole lot of goals except for, I believe, one game against York. They're holding everybody to single digits. So, I think that we're going to have our work cut out for us offensively to try to kind of fix where we're having some problems already, for sure. Young offense, I think that they have a really good two-man game out back, and like I said, a lot of guys that played a lot as freshmen are playing as sophomores, and a lot of freshmen. So they're a young group, and I think that they're eager, and they're certainly not going to not give us a great battle. They're gonna come for us for sure.
It was a 10-5 win against McDaniel last year. The second team on your schedule for this week on Saturday is Cabrini, who you also got a huge win over last year when they were ranked number 9 in the country. An 11-8 win at that point. Do you look at this game kind of as against Cabrini a benchmark and to judge where your team stands at this point, and what kind of problems could you see your team face against a team of the caliber of Cabrini?
I think we play a lot of really good teams, so I wouldn't say that just Cabrini's a benchmark. You know what I mean? I would say that we play a really tough schedule so that we can either put ourselves in Pool C contention or prepare ourselves to make a run in the conference. So I think that Cabrini's. I'm not taking anything away from Cabrini. They're a great team. Obviously, they might be the highest ranked team we faced yet. F&M had a loss to W now, so I don't know where they're going to wind up this week. But, every time we get a great team to play like this, it's an opportunity for Frostburg to, state a case that maybe, we belong in the NCAA tournament at the end of the year. So it's just an opportunity, for us, for a long time here at Frostburg. We thought we were becoming a good program, but we weren't really good enough to get great games like this. So I like to kind of celebrate with guys the fact that we've started a lacrosse program at Frostburg, and we're playing Washington College on Saturdays and F&M on Saturdays and Cabrini's on Saturdays, and let's not shy away from the opportunity to go out there and give our best effort, and hopefully at the end of the day it comes out in our favor. But it's just pretty awesome that we are where we are from where we've begun. But beyond just playing those games, we want to win some of them too, obviously. So I think we know what we need to work on this week, and looking forward to getting after it at 6 p.m. this evening.
I think it does get lost a little bit in the shuffle that this is still a very young lacrosse program in terms of the amount of years that it's competed. So I think it is impressive where your team stands, going from being a program that wasn't existing to being able to compete with those teams on the top level. But two more tough challenges for your squad again this week, Tommy. Hopefully 2 wins, and hopefully talk to you next Monday after 2 big victories for your squad this week.
Hope so.